People don't stop listening because you're boring. That's what most people think. They think people stop listening because they're not interesting enough, not charismatic enough, not funny enough. But in my experience, that is usually not the reason. I've met incredibly interesting people who lose an audience within 30 seconds. And I've met people who aren't particularly entertaining, who can hold a room for an hour. So, what's the difference? The difference is that one person is giving information while the other is creating meaning. And most people never learn the difference. Have you ever been in a conversation where somebody starts talking and after a minute or two, you realize you've stopped paying attention? You're still looking at them, you're still nodding along, but mentally, you've left the conversation. It's not because they're saying something stupid. It's not because they're boring. It's because you're listening to words, but you don't know where those words are going. And when people don't know where you're taking them, they stop following. I see this all the time in meetings, in presentations, in conversations. Someone starts with context, then more background, then more explanations. And after 3 minutes, everyone knows more than they did before, but nobody knows why any of it matters. The speaker might think, I need to explain this better. But usually that's not the problem. The problem is that they never gave people a reason to care in the first place. Think about the difference between these two openings. The first one, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the project. Nothing wrong with it, but nothing interesting either. Now let's compare it to this. There's one thing happening in this project that will affect all of us. Same topic, completely different perspective. Why? Because now I know why I'm listening. The human brain is constantly asking a question. Why does this matter to me? Not because people are selfish, but because attention is expensive. And every day we're flooded with information, emails, notifications. Our brains have learned to filter. And one of the fastest ways we filter information is by asking, is this relevant to me? The best communicators answer that question immediately. The weakest communicators answer it too late, or maybe not at all. This is one of the biggest communication mistakes I see. People think communication starts with information. It doesn't. Communication starts with relevance. Before people care about the details, they need to understand the point. Before people care about the process, they need to understand the outcome. And before people care about the explanation, they need to understand why they're listening, what's in it for them. And once you start noticing this, you'll see it everywhere. Watch it in great speakers, presenters, podcast hosts. Very rarely do we begin, and they begin with information. They begin with meaning, with attention, with a question, with a problem. They begin with a reason to keep listening, and then they deliver the information. Most people do the opposite. They deliver the information and hope the meaning appears later. Sometimes it does, most of the times it doesn't. One of the simplest shifts you can make is this. Before you speak, ask yourself, why should this matter to the person listening? Not why it matters to me, why does it matter to them? That question changes everything because suddenly you're not organizing your communication around what you know, you're organizing it around what they need. And that's where influence starts, with helping people understand why something matters to them. The next time you feel people drifting away during a conversation, a presentation, or a meeting, don't immediately ask, how can I explain this better? Ask, did I tell them why it matters to them? Because people don't listen because you're speaking. People listen because they understand why they should listen. So think about this. What's in it for them?